Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter of TIPS IE, Trauma-Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire. And today we're here to talk specifically about what's going on in our schools, particularly with regards to some of our minority students. I'm not going to tip my hand today, but contributing to this conversation, we have Shor Denny, Joyce Clarke, and Tamika Carter, also of TIPS IE. As you guys have pointed out, you have law enforcement, you have counselors, you have administrators, all in this stew of trying to foster better behavior. What is the teacher's role in this stew? Because they have the most time with the students.
Man, okay, I'm gonna jump in because I have been working with some schools where the teachers are completely unprepared, where the teachers are as freaked out, if not more, than the students. We need to, community-based organizations like Community Now are working right now to work with county offices of education to support teachers by doing things like cultural sensitivity, talking about trauma-informed care, and looking at ways that we can have peer-to-peer support with our teachers. So again, the community-based organization has these answers, has different models and blueprints already set up so that we can support our teachers and our school staff.
I'm reminded of a story I've shared several times. I walked into a second grade class, and so I had clients at a particular school I worked with, and sometimes I work with them in the classroom. I walked into the classroom, and the teacher was like all out anarchy. And the teacher, a white woman who was very country and conservative and Southern, who was noted to possibly be a member of the KKK, rumor, she had a question on the board, and it was the writing prompt was, "My week without electricity. How did it go? What did I learn?" And some other stuff, right? And you're talking about a school where, I mean, half of these kids have endured that by the second grade, going without electricity. And so what I called that was cultural competence gone wrong. We have a lot of schools who ascribe to some sort of training that a lot of times is not led by a person of color or designed by a person of color. And they do this kind of blanket, okay, if you're gonna work with a Black person, bring chicken. You know, they do these blanket statements about working with Blackness. And then the intricate and the delicateness of forging a trusting relationship that can help a teacher propel a young person into success, that doesn't happen. Right. And so then they try these things like my week without electricity. And the kids are going crazy. And I'm looking at, because my particular client I know has endured that, right? Has gone without a lot of things at some point. And they have a familial system that we CBOs understand, right? I knew that I had a family, if the washer didn't work, they were gonna spend the night at grandma's all week, and it worked. So we don't need social workers or police kind of telling us what to do in those situations, because we have the protocol, we've seen it, and again, we've been to their homes. And so I think for us as people who work with teachers, we have to be able to get them to, one, accept that they may have a deficit in knowledge about a certain cultural group, to fill their bucket with knowledge, and then to allow them to explore how they are dealing and communicating and helping students of color. Because if a lot of times they think they are, and they're really just not. And there are a lot of times they're doing damage. And I have so many kids who have been traumatized, who've experienced more trauma at school than they have in their homes. And that's ridiculous.
I have heard people older than me when I was young say it was better for our education when schools were segregated. We had Black teachers who may have been in one room, may not have had all the school books, but there was an atmosphere of love and nurturing in education. So we have to look at our historical Black colleges and thank those who still struggle to stay alive and sustain, because Harvard and Yale and MIT and USC are stealing our best brain power in the last 2 to 3 generations. They waive a 4-year full ride because they know if they get you at Yale, they will propagandize you to never look back. And that's not every young boy, young woman who's Black, but it happens too often where you forget who you are until you have a Sammy Davis Jr. moment and you're the only Black person in the room when you look around, and you have no credibility. And in that boardroom, they very easily look at you as boy. So I bring that piece of history up to say that it doesn't start here. We have to keep going back to what has happened, what our prior generations have had to endure, and learn lessons from them. Take that history, twist it, tear it up after you learn from it, and say never again.
That's right. That's right.
We are here because we let drugs into our community. We are here because promiscuity said it's okay. We're going to celebrate that at 15 you're pregnant. We are here because the welfare system in some states says the more babies you have, the longer you can stay on welfare. That means you don't ever want an education because you got a paycheck and a boo and 8 kids by 5 different men.
We're not here because of that. No. Those are symptoms. And those symptoms come from non-livable wages, right? I mean, we're not here because of what our actions are. We're here because of what we've had to do because of the systematic racism.
Take some responsibility, Shor. Take some responsibility, Shor.
There is responsibility, but how can I, when you say, when you go through the trauma and you with your history, when you look at what has happened and you see how Willie Lynch has dealt, how we have been dealing through our generations, when you look at trauma and how trauma changes your brain, it changes your DNA. No, these are not excuses. This is real. You want me to take responsibility? I will take responsibility for trying to make myself economically stable enough to not have to deal with the things that I have to deal with under the pressure that we're under. Systematically, without having a livable wage, we are in poverty. When you're in poverty, you're in trauma. When you're in trauma, that means that all things open up, right? We're now smoking, drinking, having sex. We're doing all of these things that our bodies are doing because of the traumatic state that we are in. I so get tired when people say for us to take responsibility for actions that aren't our action. The systematic repression that we have gone through, Jim Crow, that our parents have nothing, right? And people want to say, oh, they have nothing because they didn't do anything. Bull crimey. They have nothing because of the system. I have worked hard, diligently for 10 years with my nonprofit in 2000s, and I have gone nowhere because of these ceilings that are there. No, it's not me to take responsibility. It's me to say, I'm going to fight and not go into alcoholism. These are things that I try to do and teach my youth. But no, I'm sorry, this is where we as a race fight against each other, where we have one group looking down at another because of symptoms, not because of the cause. The cause who we need to be looking at is the systematic repression of our people, not the symptoms that come from it.
I only half agree. There has to be, all the points are good points, but I'm just saying, at some point you have to wake up and say, wait a minute, I didn't have to have 5 children, and I'm only 22. That's the responsibility. Or I've seen 8 people in my family on drugs die. Let me stop this. There has to be you got to at some point make a better decision.
I'm going to take you and we're going to learn about trauma, because no, that's not true. What you're saying is not true. The traumatized mind does not think normally, right? And you're talking about traumatized people. And I think that's something that we have to look at as a society. Traumatized people do not act normal. Their brains have been distorted, and especially trauma that comes in early. And as we know, African Americans, our trauma starts at birth, before birth. So when we're talking about a traumatized mind that has been traumatized all of their lives, no, where is that responsibility? Are they responsible for the trauma that happened to them? Are they responsible for the fact that their brain was wired differently? They're not. So how can they be and I'm not, please, I'm not trying to give everybody a pass. I'm not. I'm just saying we need to look at this from trauma. And in trauma, where everybody in this meeting right now has trauma. Every one of us, you know, is looking at the world from our own trauma.
Well, you look, give me some of the things that will help mitigate some of that trauma for the population that you're speaking of, who are born into trauma.
That's going to have to be a whole
well, at least
that's a whole other. Right now, what we need to do to get rid of the trauma is to talk like we're talking, to be real with each other and not be defensive, right? Number one, for us to have real, live, open conversations where we listen to understand instead of listening to have a reply.
What about a young person? What about a young person in middle school or elementary school? You're right, they're born into trauma. If you're Black, you're born into trauma. And
then I say have our programming, right? Programming like Tamika's class, programs like our Get Plugged In, where we're going into these schools at a young age and we are giving them emotional intelligence and life skills that they need, social awareness, so that they understand how to react socially in this type of a community, in this type of a society. That is what we do to help to reduce the stress and reduce trauma within our youth. To build their skills and their self-awareness, to give them goal achievement so that they understand that they're not failures, that they do achieve, and these things, to give them power on their campuses, to be peers, to be able to guide others to positivity. This is how we build our youth and give them the skills and that they need to not be traumatized, for resilience is what
resilience. Good point.
So, what we need is resilience in our, and we need to start looking at each other and not bagging at each other and go, why didn't you? We need to look at each other and go, how do we move from here? We understand that 80% of us have unlivable wages. 80%, not until 1968, really. 64 is when the affirmative action happened, but really, let's talk about it. 50 years have Black people been able to have a pension. Before 50 years, we did not have pensions. We did not have livable wages. We don't right now. So how can we say that a woman that has gone through generations of hopeless, traumatized women, and we're going to get mad at her because she has seen no other way but to have more kids just like her parents? I mean, how can you harm that person mentally without trying to heal them first? It's a symptom. It's not the cause.
Okay.
I truly believe it's cyclical. And I think dichotomous thinking, Black or white, is what's killing us. So here's this. When someone wrongs you, your process to peace is twofold. If someone wrongs me, I can choose to hang on to the anger. I can choose to be bitter. I can choose a lot of things. I can choose to blame them and hold on to and wait for their apology for me to heal. I can also, on the other hand, take care of myself by building myself in confidence, building myself in forgiveness, and choosing to forgive whether they admit it or not. And so I think what you guys are talking about is twofold here. So there's definitely accountability necessary on the state's part, on the government's part, and there's accountability on our part as well. What you were speaking to is actually historical and intergenerational trauma. So we have primary trauma that I may experience. I may be a sexual abuse victim. Then I have intergenerational trauma. That's if I was raped at 7, I would now raise my daughter at the age of 7 to not wear skirts. Now my daughter won't wear skirts, and she now is dealing with intergenerational trauma. She has never been sexually abused. However, she is walking around in pants every day. This is the problem we have with 85 people making 85 babies. A lot of them are, and I've worked with clients who have been well out of poverty for generations, yet still have a poverty mindset.
Exactly.
The analogy in the game we play when we talk about the ham. I don't know if you guys have heard that, where the person's, why are you cutting the ends off the ham? And they say it's because of what my mama did. And my mama did it because her pan was square. And so we have to do the work, especially as clinicians. So I'm a clinician, right? So I went there. We have to do the work of helping people recognize historical trauma, which is post-traumatic slave disorder, civil rights trauma, all of the Panther, all of those stages in history. We have to be able to recognize that. We have to get them to be self-aware of their own choices, because some of us are not making choices out of an actual being in poverty, or actually we just are making them because of what we saw done for years and years.
Right.
I had a program at a alternative high school that was mostly pregnant girls, and I called it Cycle Breakers. And it was literally, I had 6 graduates, hallelujah. And they were all multiple babies by the age of 16. They had been involved in law enforcement. Their parents were fully on all the drugs you could, whatever, all of that. Projects, all of that. But Cycle Breakers was about that moment, that choice. We are all faced with choices every single day. And in that moment, in este momento, is what I say, we have a chance to decide, am I going to do the generational poverty thing? Am I going to, my money's low. Am I going to lay down and pop out, whatever. And I don't think it's that simple to lay down and pop out a baby. But am I going to allow myself to go down this road that leads to a continuation of this poverty mindset? Or am I going to stop right now and do the painful, gut-wrenching, might even separate me from my family thing and go to college? Am I going to do the different thing and not make fun of them because I couldn't get it in the USC, but I can get in the JUCO, so I'm going to get some education? Am I going to do that? And so these decisions are what determine the direction that we're going to go. And so I think placing the blame, being dichotomous and placing the blame on either the state or on the individual will get us nowhere. We have to realize there's 2 pieces of it. Some of this though means these are conversations for in the house, right? There's conversations we have outside, but then there's conversations we have in the house. In the house, we need to have a conversation about misogyny. We have to have a conversation about why Black women lead movements and then Black men don't show up for Black women movements. We have to have conversations about what we were talking about earlier, why older and younger people, all of the division that we have amongst us, we have to start having these conversations, because that's only what's going to move this forward. And as we're doing that, out of that, we need to produce some realistic outcomes and some goals that are associated with wellness, that are associated with understanding trauma, that are associated with all these things that will present better outcomes for us as a people.
Right. Well said. Well said.
Well, ladies, we've covered quite a bit, and we're not done. I want to put one more question to wrap it up. One question, one answer. We've talked a lot about the launch of all these ideas as a direct result of Black Lives Matter. And as a result of Black Lives Matter, we've heightened awareness regarding navigating trauma and education. And it's not easy getting through either of those, but we've done that. I'm asking you to share one change to redirect minority students toward success.
From a historical standpoint and a data standpoint, putting Black history back into schools for everybody, from the teacher to the student in college, and Black or white, you have to take Black history.
Thank you, Joyce. Who's next? One change to redirect minority students toward success.
I'm going to build on what Joyce said. I'm piggybacking, actually. I'm plug. Class of Class is a program for young ladies that develop self-image before they become delinquent, before they become at risk, before they become any of these things. We need to build up who they believe they are, not their self-esteem, not their value, but when they look at who they are. That means incorporating elements of Black history and looking at women who lead. That means also building up the principles of confidence, leadership, academics, and social skills, and just all of those things that make us better. And that's, I think for me, that's my focus. That's everything, making sure that we know who we are. That way, when we are confronted with the state or with any of these other outside influences, we can stand firm in who we are as young ladies, as women, and move forward to the promise.
I think that for me, it's all, I think what everybody's saying, education, right? Understanding the value of self. I see in the programming that we do with our youth that one thing that really helps them see, my little elementary youth, is community service. When we do a street cleaning, or we go and feed the vets, or we do different things where they understand their value in the community, I think that is a time. So I would say that programs that are going to show the youth their value is something that's very needed. Not just, as Tamika said, not their self-esteem, which is very, very important, right? Especially for, I mean, we could have a whole talk on that. Look at me, the hair, the brown. I mean, we got a whole bunch of things that we have to battle for self-esteem. But I'd say that them understanding that failure is a part of life and their value to the community. A lot of people I see don't strive because they're afraid to fail. So I would say that those two things, knowing that we all fail, and that's a part of life, and their value within their community.
Yes.
Well, I believe we've had a riveting conversation today. Ladies, I'm enlightened. I truly hope that our audience is enlightened. So again, Shor, Joyce, Tamika, thank you for your insight. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for caring. And thank you because you're making a difference in the community through TIPS, i.e. Trauma Improved Prevention Services in the Inland Empire. Again,
May I give the phone number before we end, Glenn, for TIPS?
Absolutely. Please, Joyce.
Thank you. TIPS, Trauma Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire. Please give us a call if you have any questions, if you want to know more about us, if you are interested in any of the organizations, nonprofits that Shor and Tamika spoke about that they are the leadership of, please give us a call at 951-282-7173. And if you're more of an online person, you can email us, tips, T-I-P-S, dot, inland empire, cal, C-A-L, at gmail.com. Again, email, TIPS tips, dot, inland empire, cal, C-A-L, at gmail.com. Thank you. Look forward to hearing from any of you.
Again, I'm Glenn W. Hunter. Thank you for being attentive. And as always, in this crazy world, be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.